Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
26, 2022, and this is the North Bennington Graded School District Remote Public Informational Meeting. The notice and agenda has been posted and warned, and we have an agenda to follow, which is on page 21 of the materials that were sent out and available online. And there's also the warning that follows on page 23. So the articles are 1 through 9 on page 23, and the agenda is there on page 21. So the meeting is now called to order. And are there any additions or deletions to the agenda by folks present here, other than what's listed here? Anything we'd like to add on or take away from the agenda? And this is obviously a remote meeting, a virtual meeting by Zoom, which is authorized by the legislature. So it is an official meeting, but the way that we handle these meetings, everyone here that I see is very familiar with how to use the technology, but just so that it's official on the record, please let me know by either raising your hand, waving, using the hand raise function on Zoom, or just unmuting and saying something, because we don't have that many people here. You can just go ahead and unmute if you have a comment or a question, and we can handle it that way. If you are having any technical difficulties too, please let me know, because we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate fully in the meeting. Okay, so hearing no additions to the agenda or comment on the agenda, we'll go ahead and move to hear the reports of the directors.
All right. So there will be a couple of slide presentations, one for the district about the budget, and then as is our usual, we will also have a presentation about the village school, which operates in the North Bennington Graded School facility. Prior to that, because that will be most of our presentation, I would like to, I prepared a few remarks here about to thank certain people that I think it's important to thank. Now, we know that Mary is leaving as our treasurer and delinquent tax collector after, I don't actually know the number of years Mary has served in these functions, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And I wrote these up last night just so I could say something coherent about her. Mary told me recently that her task as delinquent tax collector was to reduce her fees to 0. And the common courtesy, coaching, sympathetic listening, and encouragement she has provided taxpayers of this community has been built on communication skills and our own empathetic nature. The results for this community have been the reduction of delinquencies and the recoupment of thousands of dollars for the district's children's education. I don't know whether I'm embarrassing her, but I hope so, because I really think she's done such a fantastic job. She's a fantastic person to work with. She leaves both of these offices in great shape, and we look forward to working with her replacement, who is running on the ballot on Tuesday, Doug Bougie, who's up. He's on the screen here, and I think she's left him an operation that's in very good shape, and I'm sure he will be learning, as he just told me before the meeting, learning a lot from her, and continue the same great practices and assistance to members of the community who are taxpayers. And I want to thank Lori Elwell for her dogged efforts to get the ballots and distribute them. I mean, this was an enormous task, starting with the fact that though she ordered the ballots as soon as it was possible, given the statutes on when we could warn this meeting and warn the articles that are in the vote. She didn't get the ballots from the ballot company until after the date that they were supposed to be mailed out. She had to coordinate with two other clerks, the clerk of the town of Bennington and the clerk of Shaftesbury. She had to coordinate with the Secretary of State's office to keep the chalk line straight, and all the folding, enveloping, stamping, and pushing these 1,500 ballots or so out the door is in a limited time schedule. Is truly amazing. Exhausting effort, and made doubly difficult by the fact that some of those ballots also had to have, I believe, from what I've heard from Lori, some requested MAU ballots incorporated as well. Hours and hours with a full-time job as the director of early education at the village school, and her home responsibilities, and working for the village itself, and taking minutes for us. It's really difficult to think this is enough thanks, but it will have to do. Thank you, Lori. So without further ado, I would ask Tim to take over the screen and give the presentations that we have prepared for this meeting.
So Ray, do you want to start with yours, or do you want to do mine first?
I think we should start with ours, and then you can do yours. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not at the beginning here, though.
Nope.
Yep. All right. I guess I have to do the commentary, right?
Yes, that's you.
All right, thanks. So this is the opening shot, which was at the dedication of the trees to Fay Hardy and to Dan Tao at the front walkway of the building. That's which class is that now? That's
I believe it's
fourth grade,
Second
second grade. Okay. They all have buckets, that sap buckets out there to put some soil on the base of the trees. And when was this? Now this is last
spring.
Last spring, yeah. Okay. Any rate, beautiful shot of the school and the kids. So this is a, yeah, state of the district. So describes the district, pre-K 6 choice district, ninth year of operation. The village academy, the village school of North Bennington is in its ninth year of operation, NEASC accredited, offers several enrichment programs, foreign language instruction, VAE programs in art and Highland Hall Gardens, 4 stars rated pre-K program. Articles that we're voting on in this election are for the moderator, starting July 1st. Our current moderator is John Lamson, and he's on the ballot for next year. Delinquent tax collector, a 1-year term starting July 1st. That's Doug Bucci, who's joining us after Mary Rogers' retirement. 3-year term for treasurer. Again, Doug Bucci is running for that. Authorization for the district to borrow money. That will be voted on Tuesday. A 3-year term on the Prudential committee commencing immediately. That's, I believe, Matt Patterson is running for that. A 2-year term for Prudential committee member commencing immediately. That's Kiernan McNamara is running for re-election. And then we have a vacant, unexpired 2-year term, which we don't have anybody running for. I guess it could be filled on a write-in basis if such happens. Budget votes. So the proposed budget is $3,224,363. Total spending is up from the 22 budget of $2,999,473. And per pupil spending is $19,475, about a 3.9% increase from fiscal year 22. And the village school of North Bennington is asking for a tuition rate of $18,272, which says it's a 6% increase from current year. Thank you. Budget summary. The increase over 22 is $224,890. And I listed by major area of the budget of the increases and decreases there, which I guess I'll read briefly. The administration increase a small amount, $16,400. Special education actually decreases due to the implementation of Act 178 and adjustment of the basis for allocation of early education special ed by a considerable sum, as you will notice. And there's a pre-K increase also due to the adjustment of the basis of allocation of early education costs. And then, so we have in our K-6 tuitions, substantial increase. And the contingency and building fund were increased slightly. The tuition increase, I've analyzed this by sort of regressing to taking the FY22 tuition rates and applying the estimates for ADM for 2023 to them, and to see how much of the increase is due to just continuation of the strong increase in numbers. And as I recall, let me see here. I've got this written down here. So the increase in the number of students is about 7.91% of the total increase in the tuition budget. The total increase was like 13 something. Sorry, I got to check my notes here. 13.88%, and 7.91% of that is due to the just the strong increase in numbers. And the rest of that would be due to the increase in rates of spending per ADM due to increases by the schools that provide the services. So that number, which I think we come to later on, is this last year's budget was set on about 143 K6 students, and this year's is that we're anticipating like 159 students. So nonetheless, the CLA adjusted tax rates are down slightly. For North Bennington, it's just under 4 cents a decline, and for Shasberry, it's not right, is it? Yeah, it's more like it's over 4 cents, almost 5 cents decline. And that's due to a number of factors, which I mentioned in my letter, or the board's letter in the annual report. Maybe it would make sense if I look at that. And just cite those. One is that we had an increase in our fund balance that helps by about $10,000. The other is that we had the change in assessment practices and in the special ed budget, so that there's substantial decreases there for us. Another is the fact that the state's yield for dollar of taxation has gone up rather more than it usually does, and that's due to, in part, to COVID relief funds making the education fund somewhat healthier than it has been in the past. And there's probably something else there that I'm forgetting. At any rate, there were a number of factors. It's not just one single factor. And any of these that don't come about will create a change in this rate. But it's still possible that the rate will actually drop even further, because the yield that was used by Renee Gordon in the calculation of rates is actually at the bottom end of the range that the state offered. You know, they offer a range when they give a forecast in December, and it was at the bottom end of that range. That range will be ultimately narrowed down to one number by the legislature at some point later on in the legislative season. And at the moment, though, it's a very favorable amount of money coming in per dollar of taxation for districts around the state. and we do appreciate it. So we can move on from this slide. Tim?
Mhm.
Yep, thanks.
We're stuck.
We're stuck.
Give us 1 second.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, this slide is taken from the annual report, and it shows a number of years of actual and budget numbers broken into very broad categories of tuition, special education, administration, buildings and grounds. So it shows those increased, what increased and how much. And then down below, it gives a breakout showing a bar graph that tells you where the increases are. Yep. And this chart shows the tax rates on a bar graph from back in the earliest is 2016 through the proposed of 2023 and North Bennington and Shasbury ID. And you can see that we've been pretty consistent the last 3 years, 4 years. And the variation is not very large. The range is not very large there. We try to keep it that way, but of course we don't have a huge amount of control over it. But it is a good trend, I think. There's the forecasted enrollment for 2023 in various and where they're going. The village school is the major one. The schools of the elementary schools of the Southwest Vermont Unified Union Education School District, mostly Shasbury, but some Molly Stark and Bennell, and then other independent schools, including Highland Hall, Southshire, Grace Christian, and Sacred Heart. The last two, it bears a little mention that because of court decisions this year, we were to accept residency of students who were choosing to go to Grace Christian and Sacred Heart, and we've been paying their tuitions. And yeah, the budget, the pie chart here shows these breakdowns between tuition, expenditures, fiscal year. We've increased the percentage of our budget in tuition. Administration is fairly constant, but it's gone up a little bit. Special education went down quite a lot, as you can see from the lime green slice diminished because of the application of Act 178 and the receipt or the anticipated receipt from the state of a much greater funding for special education in the SVSU. And buildings and grounds is pretty steady in amount, and pre-K costs have gone up a little bit. All right, and funding, where does the money come from? Most of it's coming from state support, general state support grant, pretty consistent here. Our local revenues went up a little bit because of the fund balance going up $10,000 this year. Okay, so this shows our equalized pupil counts from 2014 to 2023. And there's an increase of 33 roughly over that period of time. Educational spending, you can see the last 3 years have gone up fairly sharply. And finally, this is just a list of impacts on facing the district for next year in this budget that we're voting on this year. And also some of them go beyond that. So you can read them. I can comment on them, I suppose. Negative impacts, I say small fund balance, because our fund balance is the last few years has been much smaller than previously, but previously we would alternate large fund balance years with small fund balance years. Now we're just on small fund balance, but it is larger than last year, and that's helpful. I mentioned that in the positive impacts. The new assessment scheme increases costs in pre-K per se program. But on the other side, it reduced costs in pre-K special education, and the overall net impact was to decrease. The assumption that in the budget that AOE will implement Act 178 on schedule. That may prove to be untrue. A slight increase in administrative assessments overall. And then the question at the end of this is this yield per dollar of taxation going to drop precipitously after FY23? Don't hold your breath. We'll find that out in a year or so. But hopefully it won't be a substantial drop. Positive impacts, 178, Act 178 lowers our special education costs significantly. Our equalized pupil count increases, helping somewhat with the increases in our budget in terms of taxes. The changed administrative assessment reduces our superintendent office costs a little bit. Change of early education special ed costs, as I mentioned, is substantial because resources to the SU will increase under Act 178. And finally, the dollar of taxes raises significantly more money this year. And the last point is a concern. It's I think inevitable, but I'm not sure exactly what form it's going to take, that there's legislation advancing to change equalized pupil values of pupils of poverty and English language learners to provide a truer differential for the cost of educating children who are from poverty and who are learning English at the same time as they're learning everything else. And finally, that will have significant impact on all the schools here, but ours may be a little bit more. It's kind of hard to tell. It depends on exactly how they structure the act, and I'm sure they will be doing this in a way that promotes some easing into it, because it is going to be a radical shift for some districts. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a public comment on the presentation that Ray has just made? Okay, thank you very much for the report, Ray. Appreciate your efforts there. And Tim, I think are you next on behalf of the village school? And
Yes, I think so.
I'll let you decide whether you want people to ask their comments as you go or wait till the end. Usually with Zoom, it's easier to wait to the end, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest thing. But if you have a very poignant question at a particular time, please don't hesitate to pop on. All right. So this has been the last couple of years is persevere, make it through all the stuff we've been going through. And I feel that that's probably where most of us are, but I think we're getting towards the point where we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I do want to start just by saying some many thank yous to the board of the village in Shaftesbury District 1. The partnership we have working with you is very advantageous to us, and I think helps to create really great educational opportunities for the students of North Bennington and Shaftesbury District 1. So I appreciate all the work that you do to make that happen. I also really need to say a huge thanks to the families in North Bennington. Again, it would not be possible if you didn't entrust your most precious possessions to us each year. And I feel just thankful for that. And I need to say a special thank you to all the folks at the school. The staff has done an incredible job through these last couple of years, and it's been a long haul, but I think they've done just the best job possible considering all the challenges that COVID has presented. But again, we may finally be coming towards the end. Hopefully, knock on wood, all the things you can do to make that happen. But I do want to say a special thank you to our staff, a couple of which are on this meeting. So thank you very much to them for making everything possible. So I'm going to jump through a bunch of slides here. I'll go fairly quickly, but please don't hesitate to ask questions as we go along. But the end is probably the best. So numbers for this year. We have 143 students, 20 of which are in the pre-K. 108.5 of those students are in district. So we have 2 counts in the year, one in October and one in February. That's where we can get sort of that half student difference. So if we have a fluctuation, we round it out or average it out over the course of the year. So that's where we get that 8.5 kindergarten through 6th grade students from North Bennington, Shaftesbury District 1. We have 38 staff, 27 of which are full-time, and 11 of which are part-time or contractual. The contractual ones are folks who do various tasks for us, whether it's coming in for PT or things like that. And we also have the VAE art teachers and our food service providers, which make up a very important part of our group as well. And we consider them members of our community, absolutely. So I was hoping that this wouldn't be the case this year as much, but we are still operating under COVID. And this year we've been fully in person the whole time, but Delta and Omicron have had a really significant impact. If I look back to the prior year, we really had almost no cases impact the school at all. I mean, people were getting it in our community, but nothing really impacted the school. This year, we've had a number of cases in the fall due to the Delta variant. And then since the December break, we've had a really significant impact on the school because of the Omicron variant. A number of students, faculty, staff have gotten COVID, but thankfully no one has gotten very ill. So we're very pleased about that. And we've seen very little transmission within the school based on the mitigations that we've been doing. And this again is all possible because of an incredibly supportive community. So The COVID precautions. This is sort of what we did last year. Some of these things have gone by the wayside, um, but we are still using many of these things. We ask every day for families to do sort of a screening of their kids. It's not as formal as it was last year, but if a student is sick or a staff member is sick, we want them to stay home. We still are masking, and that may be changing over time in the next couple of weeks or months. But we are still doing that at this time, but we are going to no longer mask outside, which we're excited about. We are doing some distancing when possible. We have a lot of increased ventilation. We have air filters in all the classrooms. We have schedules to open up our windows and things like that. Hallway windows are opened to try and maintain as much ventilation as possible. And again, we're hand washing many, many times over the course of the day, and also using sanitizer many, many times over the course of the day. So these have made it possible for us to be together over the last number of years. And hopefully we will slowly be letting go of these as we progress onward. I couldn't say how important it is that the partnerships we have within the community. And these are not all of them, but these are some of the most important partnerships we have. And first of all, it's the community of North Bennington and Shasbury District 1 that makes it all possible. We have a great connection to Bennington College. We have a wonderful, wonderful connection to the Vermont Arts Exchange, which does our arts programming. And I think they do some of the best programming I've seen in this age group. And I think it's just a wonderful part of what we do as a school, and I thank them for that. Again, the partnership with the Prudential Committee is a very great asset for us as a school, and I think it benefits the kids in the district. We have had a strings program for many, many years, and we hope to have that back as we start to relieve some of the COVID protocols. Highland Hall Gardens, thankfully, we were able to have that fully active again this fall, and we expect it to be fully active again in the spring, and students head over there on a weekly basis to engage in planting and learn about plants, and they usually are able to make some fun snacks as well. Four Winds has been a great program for us over the years, and they have been fully engaged with our school again this year, and we're so thankful for that. And then our many volunteers, and we're slowly allowing volunteers to come back into the space, and we're really excited about that. And again, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't talk about the local businesses. We have the business partners in education, and our local businesses are incredibly supportive of the school and everything we do. So here's some of the numbers for the village school over the last number of years, and we see some years of surplus and some years of deficit. The one major surplus was back in the 1920 year, and that really came down to getting the PPP loan, and that has really made it possible for us to ride this out, because we are definitely, our costs are exceeding our revenue at this time. So having that is really what's making it possible for us to continue to operate. And hopefully these things will level out in the next year or so, and we will be back to sort of running at our normal operating procedures. It's also important to recognize that these numbers are also due to fundraising. So there's the green column in the middle there, the light green column is our annual campaign, how much money we're raising on an annual basis to offset some of our costs and things like that. So this year has been last year was one of our best years ever. We raised over $90,000, and that offset our costs significantly. Otherwise, we would have been running at what you see as a $154,000 deficit. And so that made a significant impact on our overall operation. So we thank all those folks who gave us donations, gifts, and we couldn't have done it without them. So here's some charts to show sort of a breakdown of expenses and things like that. So this is a revenue and expense. The left side shows the revenue, and the expenses on the right side. Most of our revenue comes in through tuition. some of which is outside district tuition, and we always are looking to increase that. SPED services are paid for separately through contractual obligations with the SU. Pre-K program also we count that a little separately, and brings in a small portion of our budget. And then we have the development funds that account for about 3% of the funding we do in an annual year. Revenue, again, is expected to be lower than our expenses. So we hope to have as successful a fundraising year as possible this year. And so we will have an expected deficit, but not quite as much as last year. So where do our expenses go? The biggest part of our expense is the instructional portion of what we do. The next big pieces are administration, and administrative costs have gone up a little bit over the last year or two because it's just been harder to manage everything related to COVID. So we've needed to have a little more staffing in that area over the last couple of years. Building services, again, that's been increased a little bit over the last couple of years, and that has to do with, higher cleaning costs and things like that, but also more hours to make sure we're getting all the cleaning we need done to make sure the school is disinfected and cleaned as well as possible. Special education, the costs sort of always exceed sort of what we make as our revenue in special education, and there's a significant difference there. The special education services we supply is about 11% of what we do, yet we only bring in about 4% of our overall revenue to cover that. Pre-K expenses, a little bit lower than the revenue, so that is a small piece of the pie that works out quite well. And then there's always food service and things like that. So even though we have all students are getting free and reduced lunch this year through support from the federal government, we still have contractual obligations to our food service provider. So it does still cost us a small portion of our overall budget. So what's our proposed budget for next year? An overall increase, but those slices of the pie remain pretty close to what they've been. Tuition, again, is the largest portion of our income, and then instruction is the largest portion of our expenses. And hopefully, if all goes well, and these numbers remain sort of true, we will actually get back to a small budgetary surplus. And when we're dealing with a $2.3 million budget, $40,000, give or take, is a pretty good place for us to be if we can manage that. So we'll be excited if that works out. Why are the changes in the budget that we see there? So this year we looked at a 6% increase in tuition. And why is that happening? Increasing benefit costs, those are always going up, and usually disproportionately to inflation and other costs. Increase in student services, interventions, and what we're seeing, I think less so than many other schools around the country and even in our region, is COVID has had an impact. So we've needed some more interventions, and this comes down to counseling and student services in that respect, but also support in reading and things like that. So we have tried to provide more interventions, and we look to doing that in the future as well to offset some of the challenges. But so far, our kids have been only minimally impacted from COVID compared to what many of us may be reading about across the country. Utilities have gone up significantly this year compared to the last couple of years. And also inflation rates have gone through the roof. It's about a 6% inflation rate. So we had to account for that in our budgets as well. So I will leave you with our last bit, or the starting part of our mission, which is children are at the heart of all we do. And I think that is what says it all. We wouldn't be here doing this work if it wasn't for the young people that it serves, and the smiles and the learning that happens on a daily basis is just spectacular, and it's fun to see and witness for me. And especially over the last year or so, the time that I can be in the classroom and be with the kids is the best part of my day, and I'm just very happy to be a part of such a wonderful school. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop the share and then allow folks to ask any questions they may have. And if you need me to bring up another slide, I'd be happy to do that. But does anybody have any questions for me at this time? So I mentioned it at the beginning, but as I said, a couple of folks who deserve special mention who are on the Zoom meeting right now. Lori is not only the clerk of this meeting, but she is also our pre-K director and kindergarten teacher. And what a great job she has done through all this. And I want to thank her for that. And then Sherry Schwartz is on the call, and she is sort of my right-hand person. She supports me in so many different ways, and the school doing so many little things. They're countless what she does behind the scenes, but I want to thank her especially. Jennifer Fells is on the call, and she's one of our board members, and I want to thank her for her service. And again, the Prudential committee for all the work that they do that make it possible for the students in the district to have a really beneficial educational program all around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I don't see, there's nothing in the chat, and it doesn't seem like there's any further comment. If there is further comment, just go ahead and let me know in some way. We can always circle back to these things, but the next item on the agenda would be to review and discuss any questions on Article 7. Again, the articles are listed on page 23, but we, going according to the agenda, we would just want to discuss Article 7, which is, shall the voters authorize the school board to borrow money by issuance of notes not in excess of anticipated revenue for the fiscal year July 1 through June 30, 2023.
Well, we have to do this because we get, as you saw from the pie chart, 95% of our revenue is from the state through the general state support grant, which has North Bennington district's tax revenue in it, but that is definitely not enough to fund the education expenses of the children of this district at the elementary and the secondary level. So we depend on that. And that comes in various tranches, but the fiscal year starts July 1st. And the first payment from the state is not until September. And sometimes it's not as timely as you would like. So we depend on that funding from the line of credit to help us pay the bills in the interim period of time. And the practice that Mary and the board have come up with is to use a line of credit rather than to use a tax anticipation note. The tax anticipation note strategy was to borrow a large amount of money, hold it in an account, and take arbitrage from it, earn interest on the deposit for most of the year, and hopefully make a little money. But the line of credit is more flexible. It doesn't really cost us very much. And it seems, Mary could probably say something else about the operation of it that's attests to its effectiveness, but it seems to me that it didn't cost us very much money, maybe, and it's a lot more flexible. easier to deal with. Plus, she doesn't
Right.
have to have a special account for it. Do you want
Yeah.
to say something, Mary?
No, I think, Ray, you've covered it. It's just simply a matter of timing. Taxes are not received from the public and nor from the state until late September or beyond. So there are a period of months where the borrowing is done. We generally do not max the line of credit, but we do request the maximum per fairly sophisticated calculation, but we have never yet had to use all of the line of credit. So I think you've covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So in sum, it's essential that we be able to borrow the money.
Yep. And okay, thank you very much. And again, just for anyone wishing to participate, these are all the items that are on the ballot, as opposed to we're not taking votes today or making votes. This is for discussion purposes. All right, so review and discussion of anything to do with Article 8. That I'll read that. That's shall the voters of North Bennington Graded School District approve the school board to expend $3.2 million. It's $3,224,363 exactly, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $19,745 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 3.86% higher than spending for the current year. Is there any, I think,
well, I'll just comment. We viewed the slideshow, which gives a pretty good picture, I think, of the budget and the various elements of it, and where the money comes from, how it gets spent. It's a large sum of money, I understand that, but we do spend it as wisely as we can, and children make choices that their parents make choices for them as to where they choose to go, and it seems to be a popular program, and it certainly has. If you remember the slide on the number of students in the district, it has increased the participation in the district's educational opportunities by quite a lot over the years of our operation in this method. Yet, of course, because it's a paying tuitions as opposed to paying operating costs of the education of the school, we're paying per individual child the full burden, whereas previously if operating just as a public school, we lack some of the students that we now have, but if extra students came in, you could crowd them into classrooms and make use of the funding that you'd originally passed. So it comes with that particular drawback. However, it seems to be well accepted by parents and children, and this is what we need to fund next year. We have made slight increases to the contingency fund and the building sinking fund, and these are in normally much of the contingency fund comes back the following year as the surplus that helps decrease the amount of taxation on the district. So it's never lost, even if we don't spend it during the year. It helps us with the following year, and that I think is a good policy. But those increases are not very large, and as I pointed out in my letter, there are substantial amounts of this budget that depend on state action, in particular the decrease in special education, moving ahead and actually implementing a program that was passed by the legislature some years ago. So we're dependent on them doing that for this budget to be effective for us, and to keep us in a positive number of, actually having a little surplus at the end of the year to help pay the bills for next year.
Okay.
I don't know what else I can say about that, but
Yeah, no, I think the presentations are very helpful on that. If anybody wanted to go back and take a look at those, if they're watching this at a later date. All right. If I don't see any comment there, so the next item, which is the last written item, is to review and discuss Article 9. Shall the voters of North Bennington Graded School District approve an annual 22-23 tuition rate to the Village School of North Bennington in the amount of $18,272 for pupils who are residents of the North Bennington Graded School District? So Ray, just the only question there is, so why is it that the district needs to approve both the spending as well as the tuition rate?
There's a legal reason for this. We're requesting more than the state average tuition for elementary operation, and therefore we have to ask the permission of our public, our voting taxpayers, for that approval. And that's because, as Tim pointed out in his slides, that is the need of the village school in order to fund K-6 education for the majority, 70% plus of our students in the district, and utilize the building that was built or started in 1870 by members of the community. And has been substantially added on to and renovated. And the last of those renovations, so to speak, was last year putting a new roof and finishing the maintenance painting on the cornice. So Tim's spoken to the need for this amount, and I've spoken to the legal need for it. And I think those are the factors that should carry the day.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that item? All right. Seeing none. Is there any other discussion of non-binding issues? If it's not on the agenda, then we can take up any other issues, but they would be in a non-binding way. Right. So if there's any other issues people wish to discuss, we could do that now.
I meant to mention this earlier, but didn't do it. There are some dedications to members of our community who passed away in the past year in the annual report, and I will mention their names. The first one is Jean McWaters. There are a few comments from various members of the community in the report with regard to Jean, including one from myself. And we now have a bench, a masonry bench of using old sidewalk marble and some bluestone for a top, adjacent to the walkway to the school that is in honor of Jean, who was a stalwart in so many ways for this community and for, in particular, contributing to the education of its students and to students throughout the supervisory union, since she was assisted a number of other teachers in art preparation programs throughout the district, as well as at North Bennington. She also was on the North Bennington school board for a period of years. And as I remarked, she's partly responsible for me being here now as the chair of this board. Such a wonderful person. And then we have two other members of our community who passed away, a husband and wife, both in the same year, Rachel Schumacher and David Monks, who also contributed considerably to this community and to the education in this community. They were big supporters of the village school initiative, and we'll miss them too. So I direct your attention to pages 10 and 11 in the annual reports, where remarks are made celebrating their lives and their contribution.
Thank you very
And
much.
that's the last I need to say in this meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ray. Really, as always, we appreciate it and appreciate everyone's time here on your Saturday. And with that, we'll let you get on with it. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at this time.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. And is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, it's been seconded. And is there all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries, and I wish you all a great day.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.